This video is going to be on making the classic Dutch delicacy or comfort food, boerenkoel. So it's very simple, and what you'll need is potatoes and kale and smoked sausage and a bit of milk and butter and some salt and pepper for the basic recipe. You can change it up depending on what your preferences are, but we'll be sticking with the classic recipe for today. So, the first thing you need to do is peel potatoes. I was going for about 2 portions. I may have overdone it a bit, but I peeled for this 3 large, 1 medium, and 2 small potatoes, with this being a medium potato. So no one wants to watch me suffer through peeling potatoes. I have pre-peeled them. They're in a pan covered with water. And I will add some salt to the pan. And then I will turn it on and bring it to a boil. So basically kind of the first step you do for boiling potatoes in general. While we're waiting for that to boil, I have some kale here. So you can use either fresh or frozen kale. If you're growing your own kale, apparently there's several varieties. I'm not a kale expert, but apparently you leave it in the ground until it freezes once, so that kind of helps remove some of the bitterness from the taste. In this case, I got this from my local grocery store. You can also get it from your Dutch toko or Dutch store, where they sell it frozen, I think, in blocks. So take the kale, and I like to just slice it up a bit. It doesn't have to be super fine, just into long strips. It helps get it in the pan better, as the pan is already quite full with potatoes. If you want, you can use a larger pan than I have. I just have a large pan and a medium-sized pan and nothing in between, and the large one is a bit large for this case, although it may have been a better idea. So I have rinsed this kale already, just to be clear, and pull off all the little bits from the stalks. So this recipe, as I said, this is a variation. So in Dutch cuisine, there are many variations, or several, I guess, on this. The most popular ones is the one with kale, but then also mashed carrots and potatoes, or mashed sauerkraut and potatoes, which I also really like. You add some caraway and you have it with mustard, and it's really good. Or mashed endives and potatoes. And I have not made that one myself, but when I was in Holland for a brief period of time, I got served it by a lot of people, and it's also very good. It has a bit more texture to it because it, I guess the leaves stay a bit more crunchy when you boil them. So, finish slicing up this kale, and the thing with kale is it reduces quite a bit once you start boiling it. So even though this looks like a very large pile, it should hopefully fit in the pan once you start boiling it, but I've been known to be optimistic, so we'll see. I should probably let it start boiling first before. And then the final ingredient we need is pre-cooked smoked sausage. You can get these also from the Dutch store, although you can also get them at any grocery store. I think I get them, there's a no-name version, which probably isn't the healthiest, but I figure the kale makes up for it, although boiling it. But this particular one I think is also from Costco, where they sell large packages. And my mom gave me this one to try, so we'll see how it is. And I usually just put it in frozen, although that also might not fit. The ones I normally use are slightly shorter. Anyways, so we wait for the potatoes to come to a boil, and then we will start adding the kale. After evaluating the situation, I decided to switch to a bigger pan. The kale would probably fit in, but I don't think the sausage was going to. And rather than like defrost half of it, slice it in half, and throw it back in, this is probably the safer bet. So, once the potatoes have started boiling, let them boil for a few minutes, because if you throw the kale in right away, then by the time the potatoes are done, the kale might be like a soggy mess and just disintegrate. So now that it's going, I'm going to throw the kale in. Going to grab a spoon and then give it a stir to make sure the kale is immersed in water, and then just throw the frozen sausage in on top so it can defrost and heat up. As I said, it's pre-cooked, so we're not so much worried about cooking it. So there are variations. I was looking it up on the internet before this, and people recommend that if you want a bit more flavor, you can fry the sausage with the kale and some olive oil beforehand, and I've had good luck doing that with some of the other variations. So like sauerkraut, it helps cut a bit of bitterness in the sauerkraut, or carrots. But the downside of that is then you no longer have a one-pot meal, so it's a compromise. The choice for compromise is yours. There are other recipes that just had you boiling everything in separate pans, which made zero sense to me. So once it's boiled for like 6 or 7 minutes, start testing the potatoes with a fork, see if they're done. They should be. As I mentioned, you don't want to overboil it. As all your kale will end up in little pieces. Not that I speak from experience or anything. So what we're going to do, since it's ready, pull out the sausage and we have our pan with kale and potatoes. As you can see, the kale has reduced quite a bit. Now it's time to mash it up. Add about a cup of milk. I'm stealing my roommate's milk on camera. Normally if I don't have milk, which I generally don't, I would use yogurt or sour cream or whatever I happen to have. Since I'm trying to make it the proper way, I'm going to use milk. And so I added about a cup of milk, and then we're also going to add a few tablespoons of butter to this. Potato masher. Fortunately, I don't own a potato masher, so I use this dough cutting thing, which is also my roommate's. You take it and you mash up potatoes and the kale together with butter and milk. So, once we're done mashing, let's pulverize it and put it back on the stove and just turn it on kind of low to give it a chance to heat it back up again. And we'll slice up the sausage into smaller pieces that are about 1/4 of an inch thick. melted the butter and heated the milk together in a pan before adding it to the mash, or before adding it and mashing it, which would help solve the reheat problem, if it's a problem, but it would also give you 2 pans. No longer a 1 pot meal. Add a bit more salt. Done. So, the final step is also very important. Is how you serve your, or eat, I guess, your Stampot. There's a variety of topping options. I mean, you can put pretty much you want, or anything you want. The classics are kind of gravy or mustard. I've heard of salted herring, which I have not tried and don't really intend to try, although maybe I should, but I'm not really a fan of salted herring in general. So how you kind of plate it will depend on your planned method of topping it. So if you're going to go the gravy route, you would go for kind of the volcano style, to fill the middle with gravy. In this case, my personal favorite is mayonnaise. You spread it out nice and flat, so you have more surface area to put mayonnaise on. Also, my roommate's mayonnaise. My apologies if I get a little green. And there we go. Finished plate of Stampot. Though I probably should have done the close-up before I put mayonnaise on. So it looks better with it. Tastes better with. Thank you for watching. Have a Merry Christmas.